Mazda CX-5. From £23,695. 8. Introduction. 6 years after the launch of the original CX-5 SUV, Mazda's Skyactiv model revolution has come full circle. Having touched the Mazda hatchback and saloon, the bigger 6 saloon, the 2 Super Mini, the CX-3 crossover and even the 4th generation MX-5 car, this curiously named program of technological overhaul, which has brought new platforms, new engines and new thinking to the Japanese firm, has returned its focus to this, the 2nd generation CX-5. Predictably, there's less of a gleam of radical newness to this car than there was to its predecessor, as Mazda inevitably enters a period of consolidation and refinement. But there's now a weight of expectation on the CX-5's shoulders created by the success of the car that it's replacing. The first CX-5 got in fairly early on the current craze for SUVs, and of which a remarkable 1.5 million units were built and sold around the world over a 6-year lifespan. The CX-5 now accounts for 25% of Mazda's global sales volume. Such popularity could be significant for this replacement, since a stronger established business case will likely have markedly increased the money and resource Mazda was willing to sink into this car than might have been invested otherwise. There's no expensive new platform to eat up the lion's share of that development budget, either. The car sits on an updated version of its predecessor's mechanical underpinnings, although an extensive model replacement program has, according to Mazda, altered the car's dimensions and exterior styling, made it more rigid, improved its steering, suspension and braking systems and given it a completely new interior. This time around, Mazda is promising the same taut and agile handling that made the previous CX-5 so appealing to keener drivers shopping for a typically soft compact SUV, but partnered with a much more expensive feeling and better equipped interior and much improved cabin refinement. The company plainly has the SUV segment's premium and semi-premium brand players in its sights, but is setting out to undercut them by several £1,000s in some cases once equipment level is taken into account. So where's the catch? Design and styling. The dimensions of the 2nd generation CX-5 silently confirm its relationship with its predecessor. The new car is within 5 mm of the old one on overall length. You'll often see a bigger difference than that on a facelifted car as a result of a mere bumper styling alteration, and is identical on overall width and wheelbase. Where it does differ is on overall height, the new car standing 30 mm shorter than its antecedent, and quite possibly benefiting visually from the aesthetic advantages that a lower roofline confers. Mazda's new look for the car adds slimmer headlights and a larger helping of chrome trim and certainly creates a smarter, more serious and more upmarket looking car. Revisions to the CX-5's body in white may have added 15% to the car's torsional rigidity by the inclusion of 3% more ultra-high tensile steel, but they haven't made it significantly lighter. Mazda's claim, however, is that 50% of the components that make up the car's monocoque, by number, are new. The joints between the front suspension and the body have been reinforced, as have the body sills and the A-pillars. Elsewhere, the steering bushes have been stiffened, the lower suspension arm bushings uprated, and the dampers respecified and retuned for smoother roll characteristics and better mid-corner stability. On the electronics side, the car features new dynamic stability software called G-Vectoring Control, which uses integrated control of the engine, transmission and chassis to monitor the car's pitch as it progresses from turn into apex and then exit, and makes subtle modulations to the engine's delivery of torque to juggle the car's weight around between its axles. This, Mazda claims, is automatic load transfer and the consequent maximizing of grip, steering response and stability done imperceptibly, an interesting idea. The CX-5's engines have been carried over for the most part, with detailed changes made to Mazda's 2.2-liter diesel lump in particular aimed at improving refinement. We tested the volume-selling 148 bhp 2.2-liter diesel in front-wheel drive manual form. A 163 bhp 2.0-liter petrol is also available, as is a 173 bhp 2.2-liter diesel. Four-wheel drive is offered on the 148 bhp diesel as an option and on the 173 bhp one as standard, and a 6-speed automatic gearbox can be had with either diesel. Interior. Much like the engineering revisions, the interior refresh tends towards carefully considered adjustments rather than wholesale change. Which isn't to say that the aesthetic remains unaltered, just that the hard points, and therefore the car's layout, are essentially the same. Nevertheless, there are three telling modifications. Firstly, the infotainment has been liberated from the dashboard and plonked on top, a far more modern setting. Secondly, the center console has been raised to better meet your left elbow, and thirdly, the trim materials have been revised. Modest changes, then, but they adroitly transform the CX-5's cabin, especially from the driver's seat. Exhuming the touchscreen allows for a smaller, less invasive dashboard, one far nicer to touch than it was previously. Arguably, the display itself is still slightly too small, but by better segregating it, Mazda has at least made interacting with it seem more instinctive. Although it is new to the CX-5, Mazda's touch panel and the software that drives it is a familiar package. The 7.0-inch screen isn't the most expansive offering around and occasionally makes the interface seem a little cluttered. However, the menu system is logically presented, its home screen crescent mirroring the motion of the dial controller, which is still positioned a little too far back on the center console for most testers' liking. There's no reason to use this if you prefer the touchscreen, although it's not difficult to miss the display's tabs in some submenus. The satellite navigation is usable enough and its functionality is dramatically enhanced by a new version of Mazda's head-up display. Now projected directly onto the windscreen, the full-color system includes turn-by-turn instructions, as well as speed and other vehicle status information, and is standard on the Sport nav trim level. Also on the equipment list is a serviceable 10-speaker Bose stereo system and a reversing camera. The raising of the gear lever by 40 mm, a byproduct of the console's elevation, which also affords a better proportioned storage bin. The real advantage, though, is the feeling, borrowed from myriad premium rivals, of being better sunk into tall surroundings. The CX-5 can afford to make this impression without seeming restrictive because it remains at the larger end of the family crossover scale, a virtue likely to be appreciated by those sitting in the back. With a wheelbase marginally longer than either a Ford Kugas or a Volkswagen Tiguan's, the CX-5 offers rear seat accommodation that's certainly adult-friendly in both leg and headroom. Its usability has been augmented by the introduction of a two-step reclining mechanism, a first for Mazda, which allows the seatback to be canted aft to an angle of 28°. Most buyers will be more interested in the boot space than ways of impinging on it. Happily, the CX-5 remains a sturdy prospect here, too, with 506 liters available to the model's beltline. The Sport Nav model on test has a powered boot lid, although the 40/20/40 bench still flops forward manually. The pleasing